Hello and good morning. Welcome again to the IMC. This is Jenny Rocket with ASEAN 2017's Media Affairs and Strategic Communications team. It is my pleasure to have you for today's press statement with Mr. Geronimo Sanez, Chief of the Hazardous Waste Management Section, Environmental Quality Division of the Environmental Management Bureau of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources of the Philippines. Mr. Sanez will give us a briefing today on the ASEAN environment-related outcome documents. His expertise includes hazardous waste management, environmental impact assessment, chemical emergency response and preparedness, chemical safety and security, pollution prevention, isotope hydrology, and environmental risk assessment. As chief, he supervises the implementation of the Toxic Substances and Hazardous and Nuclear Waste Control Act, Republic Act 6969. He has represented the Philippine government in intergovernmental negotiating committee meetings and workshops. Mr. Sanez is a lecturer in the University of Philippines Certificate Program for Toxic and Hazardous Waste Management, and he has served as resource person in different professional organizations, corporate and academic institution trainings, seminars, and workshops. Without further ado, I am pleased to welcome Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Mr. Geronimo Sanez. Please come to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. I will just be sharing with you the ASEAN Joint Statement on Climate Change to the 23rd session of the Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. During the 31st ASEAN Summit, the heads of states issued a joint statement to be delivered by the ASEAN during the high-level segment of the 23rd Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change that is now ongoing in Bonn, Germany. Since all countries in ASEAN are developing, or termed as non-OECD, some common Asian views include adherence to the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. The need to issue the joint statement by the ASEAN member states is to articulate the ASEAN's common concerns and the need of the UNFCCC COP23. Climate change policies should take into account the following: calls upon developed country parties to provide means of implementation to ASEAN in order to enhance sustainable management as well as conservation of biodiversity, ecosystems, and landscape. Another one is strengthens the ASEAN rapid response capacity on climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction under the ASEAN Agreement on Disaster Management and Emergency Response, or simply called AED-ADMER. Calls upon developed country parties to honor and fulfill their existing mitigation commitments that includes financial support amounting to $100 billion annually under the convention. Urges the Green Climate Fund to facilitate and promote direct access to the fund by ASEAN and other developing country parties, and calls upon developed country parties to enhance support the ongoing efforts on promoting low carbon and climate resilient ASEAN cities. The joint statement is usually drafted by the officials attending the ASEAN Working Group on Climate Change, currently chaired by Singapore, and approved by consensus of the ASEAN Environment Ministers and the ASEAN leaders. This year's statement was drafted by the Philippines through the DENR upon request of the ASEAN member states. The said draft was agreed by the ASEAN senior officials on environment during its 28th meeting held this year in Manila. So that's all for the salient points of the joint statement that will be delivered next week during the high-level segment in Bonn, Germany, for the 23rd Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Thank you.
So we only have time to receive 2 questions. So as always, please state your name, affiliation, and limit your questions to 2 questions. So we're now open for questions. Oh, sorry. You can use any of the mics on the left or right of you.
Good morning. My name is Ina Teves from the Philippines News Agency. Sir, may we know if we already have some feedback regarding the issue on Canadian waste?
I love that question. In Unang Hilit, and that is a recycled video of mine when we discovered that Canada garbage. Right now, we have filed, and the criminal case is ongoing, so I cannot really share much of what will happen, but there's already a court order to return it to the Canada. Well, I'm giving it to the Foreign Affairs Department because that is a bilateral issue, and I'm more on the technical issue of the case.
Okay, we'll take one more question. Any questions for Mr. Sanez? Well, if there are no more questions,
Thank you very much.
that ends today's press briefing. Thank you, Mr. Sanez, and thank you all.